Welcome to my diary of a painter. I'm trying something new with these voiceover shots because I'm participating in this show and we aren't supposed to show our work until the publication comes out. So I can't actually show the painting being developed like I normally do. So in my last video where I gave a little tour of my brand new studio, I think I mentioned that there was a heat wave going on. And that first, right after I shot the video, is when I started painting. And even though it was so hot, I think it got up to 103 degrees. And in our new house, we don't have air conditioning. But that was the first day that I could paint in that studio, and I was gonna paint no matter what. So I ended up getting actually pretty bad heat exhaustion from that day, but whoops. And then for the next few other days after that, while shooting this one too, you can see like I'm kind of shiny because it's really hot. The heat wave was still going on, which is a bit uncharacteristic for Silicon Valley. And this is a bit off topic, but I have this amazing plan that I've started doing during days like these. And it's pretty much, so I start off the day and I work on the areas of the painting that are going to be needing to take the most of my focus. So for this painting, there's a figure and a bunch of objects in it. So I start the day off working on the figure, and usually parts of the figure that are usually the hardest, like the hands or the portrait. And so when it's cooler at the beginning of the day and I feel the freshest, I'm working on those areas that are the most challenging. And so then when it starts to get too hot and my brain just feels foggy from the heat, then I'll switch to objects that are further away from the focal point. So in this painting, it's not the figure, but it's objects then, because the figure's the focal point. And I just kind of let loose on these areas, and I'm painting very loosely, and it's really more of like a natural reaction type of painting. So this is where I start I'm like moving back and forth a lot. Like I put brush strokes down, then I step back, see how that looks, and I step forward. And I'm really not thinking, but I'm more reacting. I'm not over analyzing. I'm not being super precise either. I'm kind of experimenting during these times and just throwing paint down, using like testing out different brush strokes and just playing around with paint and trying to kind of get out of the zone where things are like tight and super cared after, which that definitely has a place for painting. And I like how paintings like that look, but I also like other types of painting as well, kind of like Mancini, where the paint strokes are kind of, or William Turner, where the paint's just kind of like crazy and it almost looks like they just like attacked the piece. And it just gets this like other feeling to it that I really like. So I've been trying in this painting to experiment with having both of those types of painting, something that's like super focused and cared after, and then other parts of the painting where it's just a little bit looser and maybe has this other like fun quality to it with the way that like the paint is handled. And it's just kind of more fun for me too, and it's like a nice way to end the day than with kind of going crazy, more relaxed, more fun towards the end of the day. And so this is nice during, like any situation where, I'm using my brain power for the challenging pieces. And then later in the day, like I'm just like a little bit more relaxed with it. So that also works during like these heat waves that have been happening here. And I feel like I can now like paint the whole entire day. Because if I'm just like super tight focused the whole day, that gets pretty exhausting. And so if I want to work on another section of the painting towards the end of the day, it's kind of harder for me to be like, oh, okay, I got to scrape my palette and make up these new mixtures that are really precise and then be painting really precise. So it's just like really fun then to, it's like a nice way to unwind for the rest of for the day too. And just feel like, just make painting fun. And so then I'm excited to get back in there the next morning. Okay, so that was a bit off topic, but so this video, I want to talk about what I do when I'm not liking my painting. And so the way that I paint is rather slow. It usually takes weeks, or for these bigger paintings, they usually take months for me to finish. And so during this time, there's usually at least one moment where I'm not really loving the painting that I'm working on. And that's where something looks wrong, or it's not having the right feeling that I want. And just visually, things just look off. So there's a couple of things that I like to do when this is happening. And so first of all, I will take a step back from my painting. Literally, I step as far back from the painting as I can. And so I do this because I want to make sure that I'm looking at the painting as a whole, the whole image, and not just focusing on one small detail or just like a section of the piece, but I'm looking at it, like taking the whole image in. And I'm trying to see, when I do this, I'm trying to see what I want to change. I'm trying to see what I don't like about the piece specifically. And sometimes it's obvious, and other times I feel like I really need to freshen my eye to the piece, especially when I'm working on something that's like taking months to do. And, you know, like my brain just gets tired looking at it, and it just gets a bit confusing with, I know something's wrong, but I don't know what's wrong and what I need to change with it. So I have all these different tricks that I do to try and freshen my eye to the painting to make it look new. So like things will start to like pop out, like, oh, that's something that like, that's probably the area or thing that I need to do to make this piece better. So I have a mirror, a plain mirror that I will look in. And so that, you know, you are looking at the mirror image of the painting. So that kind of flips it in your brain. I'll also turn the painting upside down or on its side. I have a piece of welding glass that I call a black mirror. And so I'll look at the reflection of the painting in a piece of welding glass. And that kind of, with that black mirror, it makes you see the piece more in values rather than colors. And so that's another way to see your painting differently. And I have all these other pieces that are things that I look through. Like I have red plastic that I look through, which looking through red plastic really lets you see the effect of light in your painting. And I have blue plastic that I look through as well. I have this other tool that kind of makes everything look sepia. It's a lens that I think it's for photographers that shoot black and white, so they can see how, like, what they're shooting that day is going to look like black and white. And then I do other things too, where like I'll hold my hands up and kind of like look through circles in my hands to kind of cut up the piece, and like really anything that I can do to make me look at the painting in a new way, so I can try and figure out what I don't like about it. Now, usually it's just not one thing that I feel needs work or changes for the painting to be better. Maybe some things are clear and other things are not clear of what I need to change, or I'm like, maybe there's like one area of the painting where it's like, that is the area that I know I'm not loving, but I don't know quite what I need to do to make it better. But to simplify this for me and make me feel like, so I can get a game plan, so I know like what to do to make progress to make this painting better. I find the furthest thing that is good, or the most unfinished thing, or the thing that I know is most wrong. So for example, I'm working on this painting right now that's just out of view of this video, and it has a figure in it and a ton of objects around it. And I know this painting is not right yet, and there's something to it that I'm just not getting the feeling that I initially had for my initial idea. And I know that probably has mostly to do with the value of the whole piece, and I also know that the brushstrokes in the whole piece are just like not right, and I'm also just not loving the figure at the moment. So I know interesting brushstrokes are gonna be elusive for me right now working on this piece, and I know that like I can figure that out later, and I know that's a lot easier to get interesting brushstrokes once I know I get the value right, because the value is just so important. So I'm putting the interesting, like changing up the brushstrokes more on the back burner right now, so it's like farther down on my to-do list. Value is so important, but it's also complicated, and there's so much going on in this like big painting that it's a bit confusing for me right now exactly how I'm gonna handle that. So I'm putting that on the back burner, or like maybe like the middle burner. Okay, so the figure then. So there's a lot that I know I need to develop still with the figure to get it at a place that I'm going to be really happy with it. But for right now, the hands of the figure that I'm working out, they're still in the block-in stage. So they're the farthest done in the figure. So that's the thing that I'm going to start there with the hands and get those like caught up to like the level of the rest of the painting. And so that's what I'm working on right now in this video, is the hands. And so once I do develop the hands and I've got them developed now, I can see more easily the next steps that I need to take with values to make the painting better. So when I'm not liking my painting and I know things need improvements, but there are a lot of things I need to do to make the painting better, and if it just gets overwhelming, then I just start with the thing that's the furthest behind, and then usually everything else starts to fall in line, and then I can have a good game plan for the day.